I think one of the best things about the team that started Shopclues is that we all came from very, very diverse backgrounds. Um, I started my career in advertising in India. I went to the US to get my MBA and worked at Goldman Sachs for a short bit. Not my favorite thing to do. Moved to retail very quickly. Consumer is my passion. I love the whole retail world, the fast moving inventory, just the consumer behavior, how is the consumer behavior is going to behave with changing trends. And I found that very, very exciting. The marketing part of it, the strategy part of it, the merchandising part of it. And that particularly helped me when we started Shopclues. And the opportunity itself was identified by another one of our co-founders who visited India and realized that India was changing very, very quickly. So, a bit more of the background is that we all grew up in India, but most of our work life, or nearly all our work lives, was in the US. And if this same opportunity had been in another country, we probably would have gone there as well.
So yeah, I think completely agree with you, Radhika. I think my background was I actually graduated as a mechanical engineer, and by no stretch of imagination, I thought I would be actually running Shopclues. In fact, when I graduated, I had an option to become an astrophysicist, and then, long story, but decided not to be an astrophysicist. Um,
We're glad we decided not to be an
so I then um, worked in many different places. All of them were a great learning experience for me. I was in Rourkela Steel Plant. It's a as a mechanical engineer making steel, and then went to the US for many years. Worked for eBay, and while I was at eBay, got to see marketplaces all over the world. In fact, one of the most interesting thing was when I joined eBay. eBay had just acquired EachNet, a company in China. In fact, EachNet was slightly larger than Taobao, and was a very educative experience for me. Everybody knows Taobao today, but very few people know about EachNet. So I learned from that, and then, like Radhika said, one of our co-founders was visiting India. He saw India as an opportunity. I mean, from my experience, I knew India is also a great opportunity, and e-commerce would be the next big thing. It's a very fundamental behavioral change. So we latched onto it and started Shopclues.
I think the other thing also was that in most of the countries, online commerce mirrors offline commerce. Unfortunately, when we started in 2011, or fortunately for us rather, uh, that was not true in India. The main players looked more like the malls versus the local bazaars and the sector markets. That is not really where India shops. India is, the number of malls might come up, but that's not where true India, the mass market India is shopping. Mass market India is still shopping in the local bazaars, in Sarojini Nagar, Linking Road, and those bazaars were not coming online. Our goal was to be able to build a marketplace which will replicate the actual offline buying behavior of the customers. And that is how Shopclues was born.
So, when we started Shopclues, one thing was very clear that India has no experience with e-commerce. Um, you know, Trust online was much lower than what we would see in more developed countries. Uh, the merchants have not been exposed to internet commerce. The consumers were also not exposed to internet commerce. Our belief was that uh, for merchants to bring merchants online and to bring their businesses online, we'll have to do a lot of hand holding of the merchant, give them the tools, the technologies, enable them, empower them, so that through them we'll be able to give a great experience to our consumers. So we said we'll create the first managed marketplace in the country. Managed meaning we will help the merchant through the process of selling online, take responsibility of ensuring a certain level of experience both for our merchants as well as our consumers. So that's how it came about. So I'll start and maybe Radhika you can add to it. So GMV is gross merchandise value. Merchandise value is basically a notional concept when it comes to a marketplace like Shopclues. Um, the term actually typically comes from a more inventory-led model, where people are buying and selling. Companies like, I would say, Amazon probably would use GMV, to report their business. GMV for us is a comparative term that allows you to compare a marketplace with a inventory based model. It is basically sum total of the gross value of the merchandise that is sold on the platform. Though the business makes its revenue from a certain percentage of the GMV that we take as a service fee. So revenue for Shopclues, companies like Shopclues or eBay or Taobao would be uh, the take rate, that is a percentage of the GMV that is sold. So revenue would be a take rate, GMV is the sum total of gross merchandise value.
And by take rate, it is the commission that the platform charges from the merchants. So there are two kinds of revenues that we have. The take rate that Sanjay talked about. One of them is transactional. So as a merchant, if I come on board and sell a cell phone for 1,000 rupees and the selling commission on the platform is 10%, then I will get 100 rupees. Shopclues will get 100 rupees as the revenue. We also have some advertising opportunities and other non-transactional revenue on the platform for the merchants. So they can come in and decide that I'm launching a new phone and I want to take up this particular banner on the website, and they will pay us 500 rupees more. So that goes into the non-transactional revenue. So revenue is really the money that the platform makes, and GMV is a sum total of the entire value of the products that have been sold on the platform.
I mean, the advantages are actually very clear. If you think about it, inventory-based models would have very high capital requirement. You have to hold inventory. You have to have warehouses. It's a very different frame of mind. It's a different mindset altogether. I mean, I would not say one is better than the other. I think in a market, you will see inventory-based models as well as marketplaces. I think the choice that business has to make, for us, it was very clear that a scalable model for India, specifically, in conditions where there is a very large fragmentation of the supply base. Inventory-based model is not a very efficient model. It's hard to scale. The capital requirements are very high. So our choice was very clear that if we will create an aggregation, a platform, if you will, which is like a e-commerce operating system in the cloud, technology-led, where we will aggregate a large number of merchants to come online and sell. We will participate in all the services that the merchant would need. For example, fulfillment would be a service, payment would be a service, cataloging will be a service, invoicing, billing, uh, merchandising, marketing, these are all services. So our point of view was that you create an ecosystem of these services, provide these best of the class services to the merchant, and let merchant decide how they will transact or how they will price their products, uh, you know, where they will sell, how will they merchandise them. All of this enable them to do this. Our belief is, and I think it is playing out very nicely for us, that in a market which is so fragmented, where the consumer is so differentiated along the spectrum, marketplace becomes a very good and asset-light model that scales very nicely as the opportunity in India becomes larger and larger.
And also look at it this way, right? We're a horizontal marketplace. So we're product agnostic, we're category agnostic, we're brand agnostic. One of the categories that, and I'll give you a specific example, one of the categories that is very popular at Shopclues is home and kitchen. Now, in the US, if you compare a kitchen in New York with a kitchen in Austin, with a kitchen in San Francisco, or even with a kitchen in Alaska, you'll realize that 98% of the products are the same. Now, if I was a home and kitchen retailer operating out of the US, then probably an inventory-based model might work for me because there is just a specified number of inventory that I need to stock. Now, look at the fragmentation in India, where if you compare a kitchen in Srinagar with a kitchen in Delhi, with a kitchen in Mumbai, and a kitchen in Chennai, I can promise you most of the products are different. the cooking utensils that are used, the way food is made, everything is there's a significant difference. And as a retailer, if I were to stock all the possible products that would be able to cater to this whole fragmented consumer set, that would require like massive capital. So for us, it just made sense inherently to bring more and more merchants online. So currently, we have somewhere around 200,000 small and medium enterprises that are selling on the platform. And that results in a selection of more than 2 crore products. Now, with an inventory-based model, it is impossible to replicate that.
So, I mean, Shopclues is a technology company which is in the business of retail. We've always thought that the problems are to be, if you have to solve a problem fundamentally, you have to bring the best of the technology to play. I'll give you examples. Today, the Uberization that has happened, there are these stalwarts in the industry world over. You have Airbnb, you have eBay, you have Taobao, you have Uber. These companies have shown many times over that they have used technology in a manner that has given them the scale, a very high operating leverage in their business. And I believe that any company, independent of whether it's a marketplace or not a marketplace, if technology is not brought to bear, I think very soon they will be obsolete, or just their business model will probably not be able to sustain. Like so, you ask me, what do you think will happen in the coming years? I think Airbnb has shown us that it is possible. eBay and Airbnb have shown us that it's possible to aggregate unstructured inventory in the e-commerce world in a manner where you can still maintain a very high level of trust. Uber has shown us that you can create an organized system of transportation where the providers are very fragmented. I think, and both of these players have shown beautifully how technology has been used in this thing. So I believe, as we go into the future, you will see that these technologies will become table stakes, and e-commerce will create huge amount of data. I think the next level of innovation is going to come from how well companies are able to use this amount of data to create information. So you will see. And by the way, the most important would be, the mobility is completely changing the dynamics of how people think. The opportunities, of course, mobility has its challenges, smaller screen, but it is also changing behaviors of the consumer. And I think we've seen very dramatic change in consumer behavior. I would give an example, about a year ago, our peak times of when people were shopping were during office time, because there was a time when people would get access to internet from 9 a.m. to, let's say, 5 p.m. is when you would see most of the commerce activity happening, and during lunch hours you will see a spike. That has changed. Now we see commute hours becoming more of a shopping period, before 9 o'clock and after 5 o'clock, when people are actually either coming to work or going back to work, and midnight, you can't sleep, you are actually browsing something on your mobile phone. So I think these are very important ecosystem changes that are happening. I think organizations that are not able to leverage this will find it hard to compete.
That's always a very good question to ask entrepreneurs, because when you read the paper, you read $100 million raised and $300 million raised, but the amount of energy and more than that, the amount of heartburn that goes into it is just incredible. It's just unbelievable. You said that if there are any failed pitches, if any, if I remember, let me assure you, for every successful pitch, there are probably 3,000 failed pitches. So
I think that's an amazing point. I think, so I'll just, maybe that's not exactly what you're asking, but I'll just say, all you need is one person to say yes. Be ready for hearing no. I mean, see, an entrepreneur by definition is somebody who's trying to sell a vision, and they need believers, and not everybody would be a believer, and by no means it is a personal rejection of either your idea or you as a person. I think different people have different context in which they can or they cannot participate with you. So but the fact is that if you believe in what we are trying to do, uh, then you just you chug along. I mean, our pitch in all these rounds of fundings were the same. Our vision was the same. The vision statement has never changed of what Shopclues is doing. How, what life cycle of the organization we are in, the kind of money we are trying to raise obviously changes, but who we are, what we stand for has never changed. We don't change our pitch because somebody would like this or that. That's unfair. um, it's unfair to ourselves, it is unfair to people who want to believe in your story. We want believers to be part of the journey, and and it is almost stupid to think or foolish to think that everybody will buy your pitch. What happens is that as we start raising money and people start believing the story, there's a momentum that is built, and you get a certain amount of street credibility. um, as the organization has some history, what you say is possible, and what you do, what you say you will do, all of these are now measurable, and I think that helps. And so yes, our funding rounds were never easy. I don't believe they're going to be easier in the future too. uh, but we'll continue to make the same pitches because that's what we believe in.
I think there are two things that an entrepreneur gets money for. One is execution or the vision or the business plan that Sanjay talked about. Second is the competitive environment as well. Um, and I know for us that's been one of the largest challenges. Our execution has been fairly impeccable, if I may say so myself. So we've had really good growth. We've done very well. We've built very strong teams. The competitive environment has been kind of brutal. Our competitors have raised a lot of money, and there's this wall of cash, quote unquote, that we keep getting asked. That is this? How are we going to be able to fight against it? But the fact of the matter is that your execution at the end of the day is what wins. You cannot have a Me Too model. It has to be a differentiated model. So for all the entrepreneurs out there, firstly, you really need to believe in your vision. You need to believe in the plan that you're building. And you need to be differentiated. It doesn't matter if there are other players in the market. Then the differentiation needs to be palpable. Just because my logo is blue versus yours being green, that's not differentiation. Who's the customer that we're going behind? We're going behind the mass market. We're going behind tier 2 and tier 3 customers. This is the true middle class of India. People making 2 lakhs to 9 lakhs. How do we serve these customers? By getting in more and more unstructured products. One of the things that I always ask my investors to do is to go out on the street and talk to 10 people who are walking on the street and ask them how many of them are wearing branded clothes. India is truly not about branded clothes. And that's the game that we are playing. We're very big in fashion, in home and kitchen, but fashion for us is very different than it is for Manta or Japan. Fashion for us is about regional and local brands. Brands that you've probably not heard of. If you live in Bombay, you haven't heard of a brand in Delhi, and if you live in Delhi, you haven't heard of a brand in Bombay. We're very big in electronic accessories. So unstructured categories is very key for us. Now, how do you bring these categories to the consumer that we are talking about? The only way to truly do that is not through an inventory-based model, but through getting more and more merchants on board. And there we have 200,000 merchants who come in with a selection of more than 2 crore products coming in. Just in fashion per se, we have over 30,000 merchants who are providing the selection to the customers. And so our differentiation, if you look at it this way, these 3 buckets is very clear, very palpable. And for the investors, having said that, do the investors always recognize it in the first look? Some of them do, and for some of them it just takes a while more, and but hopefully they come around as well.
Yeah. I think I'll also add to that, when you talk about differentiation, I think, there is a visible differentiation, what your positioning in the market is. I think that is definitely key. But there are fundamentals of the business also, how the vision of the business is actually executed. Um, just to give you some comparative numbers, we raised a very large round, like you mentioned, about 4 or 5 months ago. But the entire Shopclues was actually created with about $30 million in a period of 3 years, and which is by factor of 10 to 20 lower than a comparative business that we see in India. I think that is a very important differentiator. It clicks, people understand. You've created a cost advantage. I mean, an example would be Blockbuster and Hollywood studios in the US could not compete with the cost advantage that was created by Netflix. Even Walmart, which is known for its cost advantage, the way they operate their businesses, could not compete with Netflix. And I think that also is a very important differentiator that is slightly hidden from public view, but it is appreciated, and it's very, very important. Every business is in the business of making money, and how effectively you can do that, and how effectively you can demonstrate that you can do that, I think is a very important thing. So yeah, I mean, the event was completely unanticipated. There was no preparation for that. In fact, I remember when we would go around and make our pitches, we would have key risks to the business, and one of the key risks we would have key man risk. We thought that was almost theoretical. Who runs into that situation? Capital is the most important thing, but we actually, for us, that key man risk actually happened. It was an unfortunate event, but in a situation like this, one of the two things either happen: either the teams come together and become closer and more determined to do something, or they can just fall apart. We were lucky that for us the former happened, where the other founding members of the organization came together much more closely. We believed in the vision. We knew that we could do it, and I think I mean, it will be incorrect to say that it was not a disruption, something that we could have done without. But given the cards that we were played, I think our ability to bring the organization together, continue to have that same focus that we had, and believe in the opportunity that we were trying to pursue, I think that held us together, and today we are here talking to you.
I think whenever anybody starts a business, right, and we talk to a bunch of entrepreneurs as well, they come in, they're like, what is one of the most critical things while building a business? You need to have a very clear business plan, you need to have a very clear vision, everything. But one of the things that is underestimated by most entrepreneurs is the team. No business can be a one-man show. It's always a team that runs the business. And I think for us, that was the biggest strength and the biggest advantage that we had. We had a strong team that stuck by each other and worked well to bring the business back up to speed, to stabilize it. Because the incident was a pretty significant one. But the fact is that the team, I think that's just it, that you cannot undermine the team. So for me, this is my second entrepreneurial gig, really. The first one was I started a content portal for South Asian women. This was based out of the US. And the first 8-9 months were great, very significant traction, very, very bootstrapped, but doing well, traffic from over 50 countries. The minute I stepped out in the market to raise money, it was not happening. It was very clear that the market, that the numbers that most of the investors were looking at that time, this was also 2009 when the market was dicey, which it gets every couple of years. I think that's another thing that most of us need to remember, that good times don't last. it didn't work. I could not raise money and with the same numbers, if I had tried to raise money in a better time, then I would have raised a significant amount of money. So timing was off for me. So that was one. It was a huge learning experience because the tricks of the trade that I learned in that have come up very handy at Shopclues. But it was sad as well because a lot of hard work had gone into it. I think the second thing that's always a very funny thing is when we started, when we came together to start Shopclues, we had a term sheet from one of the largest VCs in the world, and a very significant amount term sheet. This was on the business plan, on the team that had come together. All of us had quit our jobs, and at the last minute, Amazon came up with a press release saying that they were going to enter India. I'm talking about 2011, mid of 2011, and our term sheet got withdrawn. And this is when our families, everybody was planning on already moving to India. Not planning on moving to India. Containers were packed, jobs were gone, and the money was gone. At that time, there was just two things to do. Either you just take a step back, go groveling back to your bosses and say, please give us our jobs back, because the money that we had planned for Shopclues has not come through. And the other one was try and raise money. So our founder, the main founder, he raised money, and we are here. It was a significantly smaller round, but there were a couple of very, very sleepless nights, very scary, to decide whether we really wanted to do that. And I think finally, there hasn't been a single round where things have gone as expected.
That is because you're expecting something different.
No, like I'm just expecting the normal. It just never happens.
So I'll just, I mean, all rounds will be like that. I think future rounds will also be like that. About failure, I think I'll just say, failure, like Radhika actually said it, she learned a lot. I think as a point of view, you have to have failures. They are the biggest teachers. For me, in Shopclues, I think we fail every day. It teaches us something and we try again. I think the moment you give up is actually when you fail. But I think for me, I actually try to get into an entrepreneurial setup in 2009, and it did not happen. It actually did not even take off. It did not take off because I was not able to convince my family that we should all, move to India. And there was this fear. And in fact, I was also a little fearful. Should I do it? What if it doesn't work? And I think the framework that worked for me in 2011 was I kind of boxed it into timelines. Like Radhika said, bad times don't last forever. Actually, good times also don't last forever. The point is, nothing lasts forever. And in 2011, what happened was we said, okay, I'll give myself 4 years to come to India and try out Shopclues. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, I'm actually going to get an MBA degree in real world. And what is the worst that can happen? I will probably lose the same amount of money from my savings, which I would have paid any MBA college in the US. And that frame of mind actually held me, just gave me a lot of confidence, because my worst case scenario was covered, and I was very comfortable with that. On my family side, for them it was not a permanent move. Oh my God, if I move, then what happens? Will we ever come back? And I think they also kind of time boxed it. If you don't like it, you can go back in 2 years. And I think that framework worked. So I think what we are trying to do now is that we keep into perspective that good times don't last forever, and so do bad ones. And that gives us a lot of strength. I think the culture for an organization, I mean, we kind of define our culture in the organization as, the stories that we tell, the heroes that we hold high. I mean, what we say day in and day out, I think, and the events that we appreciate, that we want to inculcate, I think that kind of becomes a culture. And I think I have no other definition of culture. For us, transparency and honesty has been the main thing. You walk around the organization, you will see glass doors, glass cabins, actually most of the people sitting, including the core leadership, sits in cubes outside, in open. None of the cupboards are locked. There are no locks in the organization, and I think that's a very important message that we want to tell, or kind of percolate it within the organization. That transparency, it is, we believe you, we trust you, and you in turn will reciprocate that belief and trust. I mean, there are nuances of these, how we actually do it, but I think at an Uber level, I would just say, good times, bad times, you be honest. When we had these, there was a time when we ran out of money actually, and Radhika and I actually used our credit cards to run the company, and we did not have money for the next payroll. We were definitely, solid. We knew, that we will be able to come out of this. We were not panicking, and we ensured that the organization doesn't panic. That is not to say that we kind of were misleading people about the graveness of the situation. It was, basically being honest with them. I mean, you don't have to go out and take a loudspeaker and shout about it, but the key leadership needs to know where we stand, what needs to be done, why it needs to be done, and then you suddenly see this culture of openness comes up. There are ideas dime a dozen, but can you bet your life behind that idea is important, and if you will, then we stand behind it.
I think flat organization, no offices in the organization. We're all out on the floor. Open door policy, literally, because there are no doors, so you can walk up and talk to anybody you want. One of the things that I feel very, very strongly about is that anybody who comes to work needs to come to work with their heart, not just their mind. You need to bring your passion, you need to bring your energy to work as well. And if this particular role is not working for you, that's fine. Come reach out to us. We'll find you a better place in the organization. You have to be a fit for the organization. Hiring philosophy in a lot of ways is that we don't necessarily hire for the role. We hire you for the organization. You don't have to come with a specific skill set that makes you a good marketing person or a good product person. You need to come with a skill set that makes you a good Shopclues person. And that is the basic philosophy. It doesn't matter what college you went to, it doesn't matter what business school you went to. What really matters is, have you excelled in any one thing in life? Of course, if you went to an IIT there, you've excelled in education itself, right? But it doesn't matter if you've been to another school, but you've excelled in, you're an excellent chess player or you're an excellent chef. You have passion for something and you can bring that passion to work. And that's a strong philosophy there.
Basically, one of the things that specifically do, we actually follow the 4T models, which is we give our teams autonomy for their time, autonomy for their task, autonomy for their teams, and their technique. Basically, what it means is that the organization has flexibility in deciding what they want to do, when they want to do, with whom they want to do, and how they want to do it. I think that creates a lot of ownership in what the teams are actually trying to do, because if it is all top down, this is what you need to do, this is when you need to do, and this is how you have to do it, it becomes very mundane, and I think then people are not thinking, they're waiting for orders to come in. And I think we try to just say, here's the problem, here are a group of people that you can work with, let's figure out who are the best people on the table to do this. And then one thing I keep telling my team all the time is that if you are not able to find a job in 15 days out of Shopclues, which pays you higher than Shopclues, then you're not eligible to work at Shopclues. Which basically means that you have to be top of your game. Of course, people would want to hire you. Of course, they want you. But it is your choice that brings you to work every day. So I'll take a stab, and then Radhika, please jump in. Just to put things in perspective, today e-commerce in India is about 2 to 3%, maybe not even 3%.
Of the entire retail.
Of entire retail. We have barely scratched the surface. India is the largest e-commerce market in the world, and this e-commerce story is going to be played out not for 3 years, 5 years, talking about 15 years. It's not a fashion, it's not a fad that has come in and tomorrow something else will come, and people will do that. It's a fundamental behavioral change. I don't believe when in 1990s, that we were early 1990s, when we were introduced to the touchpad phones, and then later we got these mobile phones. There's it was a behavioral change. People started using cellular phones, wireless phones to communicate, and it would have been odd to ask, how long will this last? This will last forever. Uh, there's no way we are going back to our rotary phones and digital phones. Similarly, I think it's not a fad. E-commerce way of buying will continue to be, um, it's a behavioral change, will continue to be there. That being said, I think the forms that it will take in next 3-5 years is going to be very different. I think there's this concept of, winner is going to take it all. There'll be one large organization that will completely cover the entire spectrum of e-commerce in a country. I think that is very flawed. Um the notable exception is China, but if you look at the US, in the commerce business, in the retail business, you have Walmart, you have Macy's, you have Target, you have Nordstrom's, you have Neiman Marcus, and I can rattle off another 15 of them. They're all multi-billion-dollar companies. That is, and they all have their niches in the market. Similarly, India, which is even more differentiated and more fragmented as a consumer base than most of the West, it is it is impossible to envisage a world where you would think that one company, one organization can cater to the entire spectrum of the user. So what you will see in next 3-5 years is verticalization of these platforms. People will have to take their positions. You have to create a brand, what they stand for. And by definition, if you create a brand, you stand for something, which means that you don't stand for many other things. And that becomes the opportunity for entrepreneurs to create their own niches in the market. Mobility will definitely and very dramatically change how consumers and organizations will interact with each other. In last 2-3 years, what we've done is we've taken merchants from their local areas and given them national reach. I think in the coming years, what you will see that Shopclues and just industry in general will enable local commerce more effectively, because there is huge amount of technical innovation that has happened. Mobility is a very good example, and just the mindset of consumer is changing. Making merchants more effective in their local areas will become a very important trend, that I think I believe very strongly that's um, the next 2-3 years will bring a lot of focus, where the demarcation between online commerce and offline commerce will gradually fade away, and you will just see an emergence of commerce, and that commerce by definition will mean there'll be verticalization of brands. You will see Walmarts of India, you will see Targets of India, you'll see Macy's of India, you'll see Neiman Marcus's of India, and I think we'll all as players in this in this ecosystem will have to take up positions.
What do you think about the Internet of Things? Will I be able to order stuff from my fridge?
Of course you will. Why not?
I think that's what I'm most excited.
I think Internet of Things is interesting. Right now we are taking Internet to things. I think what you will see is you will take things to Internet. A slight, just a play on words, but I think it's a very fundamental mindset change. The mobile phone today is your wallet, is your communication device, it's your personal assistant, it is your camera, it is your video, it is your social your window into the social network. I think that bringing all of these things into the basically the definitions are changing, the lines are blurring, and I think that trend is going to continue, and we are like omni-channel is a popular keyword, uh, but I think it's more important from taglines and jargons, buzzwords and jargons. I think it's more important to understand the basic concept. The concept is technology is there. People will find this blurring of lines between online, offline, social stuff.
I think women entrepreneurs continue to face some of the challenges have not changed in multiple years. I think you need to have a very strong support system, and sometimes you just need to dig your heels in and say, this is what I want to do, and this is what I am going to do. And I think, but the basic advice is not any different for a woman entrepreneur than it is for other entrepreneurs as well. uh, be sure about what you're trying to do, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. If you do make a mistake, change the path that you're walking on and walk with the right people. I think for me, I continue to be a very strong believer in the team. That is the most critical part, whether the team is your team at home or it is your team at work.